This is the Datafrog SF2000. Now, if you're on YouTube, you'll see that this thing gets absolutely brilliant reviews, and it probably gets great reviews in Rumble too. And most of the reviews talk about how it only costs $10 or $5 or $8. And most of those reviews date back to around about April. And when I've been looking recently, now I've had this for a few weeks now, but when I've been looking recently, these are not going for like $10. Not in my country, that's for sure. Now, I purchased this from Temu rather than AliExpress, but the prices were the same on the day that I purchased them, and I paid £20. So that's about $25, I think. Out the box, absolute garbage. So it came with version 1.4 of the firmware, and nothing really worked properly on it. So you'd load an emulator, and the emulators would just perform poorly. They wouldn't run at 60 FPS. Now, the whole point of this thing is it runs retro games. Those games were from an era where you had a CRT, and those games all ran at 60 FPS. So when they run at less than 60 FPS, they don't run at full speed. So that's important. That's something important to remember. So let's just turn this on now. Hopefully the volume's not turned up too loud, so you can see what it looks like. Now, don't get me wrong. It's got an IPS screen, and it's a nice screen. But what isn't nice is just that repetitive music coming out of its single mono speaker. Also, I like to draw your attention to the fact that, look at that, see that white there? That's the backlight. And it shines out of there, it shines out the ports on the bottom. And depending on the model you buy, it also shines out the case. So the new lurid yellow ones that are coming out, you see there's a hot spot up here and a little not so bright hot spot down here on the plastic when it shines through. It is a cheaply made handheld. It's got a nice screen. Now I think it's a 230p, 240p, something like that. But it is actually quite a nice screen. The problem I have with the screen though is you can't dim it or turn the brightness up. It's just full brightness. That's all you've got. Now that music's annoying enough. Those sound effects are okay. You can live with that. Okay, so if we press B to go into a menu, I think it is it? No, select, is it? There you go. Listen to this. Sounds like someone's got a wet shoe and it's squelching every time you move. That really put me off this. It's so off-putting. However, there's things you can do to address these issues. Some of these issues. Firstly, firmware 1.4, well, you can upgrade that to 1.5 quite easily. Trying to get 1.6 is quite tricky. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the description. I've got 1.6. That firmware is a bit better. Still not perfect, but certainly better than it was. Now, Super Nintendo, it's an example I used in my previous video that I created for YouTube. On that one, I tried one of the hardest games, which was Yoshi's Island, and it runs really poorly. And lots of people are like, yeah, well, it's going to run poorly because it's Yoshi's Island. But I wanted to show certain things that happen in quite a lot of different games, but are quite noticeable specifically in that one. It's the flicker and refresh. Now, I could probably live with a flicker and refresh if it was up and down, but it's a strange diagonal across the screen. You also get strange, in the Super Nintendo emulator, you get strange artifacts where you'll get like strobing black, artifacting across the screen. And as has been highlighted before, if you quit a game and then reload the game, it'll often run better the second time you run it. So let's just turn this music down. So, what can we do to fix this? Well, there's loads of issues, like I said. One is the screen, can't do anything about that, unfortunately. The other one about the sounds. Well, thankfully, there's a really good GitHub page which has loads of information about this device, and there's a character there, I can't remember their posted name, but they have created a silent update, so you can take away all the music and sounds and stuff like that from going between menus, and I think that's a good thing to add. So I'm going to apply that to my SD card. Now I've changed my SD card and I have a 64 gig. So the other thing I don't like about this, you can't actually get your card out very easily, but there you go, got it. I just yanked it out what was on. That wasn't very clever, was it? So I put a Kioxia card in here. Pretty decent little card. Surprised that's still working. Anyway, that's, I get to lock back in there. There you go, it's in. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to open the back. First thing I'm going to do is replace the fire hazard. So what everyone says is this a really good handheld because it comes with an 18650 cell. And you know, I don't deny that. I think that's quite a good thing. It's just a shame they ship it with a 1500 milliamp hour unprotected cell. So we don't know what the charging circuit's like in this thing, and we know it's an unprotected cell. So what happens is when the battery starts to go low, rather than just shutting off, the device starts doing strange things. It starts kind of flickering, performance changes, and you really don't know what's going on with it. It's because the battery's running low. Now, as everybody knows, with these 18650s, these battery cells, lithium-ion battery cells, you should never over-discharge them or overcharge them. And unfortunately, well, you certainly can over-discharge them whilst playing on this because they start to play up. And if you overcharge it, well, bad things can happen with these cells, can't they? So that has been taken out, replaced straight away. So, like I said, everybody talks about these are great for $10. That's not that rattling. Great for $10. And that would be true. I'd agree with that. They'd be okay for $10. Still e-waste, to be honest, because it still doesn't play many emulators very well. But then you have to spend another $5 and get a protected cell. Now, it's a 2800 milliamp hour one, so we're going to stick this in here. So at least that's better. In fact, I'm going to put that in later. Other things that people don't like about this device are the buttons. They're not very tall. They're very flat, and they go down flush to the case and slightly under the case if you push them. So I'm going to try changing these buttons. They're also the convex and concave. They've done the top ones are concave and the bottom ones are convex when it should be the X and Y that should be concave, I believe. That doesn't bother me quite so much, to be fair. So what I'm going to do is I've got an old controller here. I'm going to rip that apart. I'm going to put the buttons in that. I'm going to rip that apart and use the buttons out of that because it's got taller buttons. We're going to see if they fit in here okay. And we'll probably move the membranes over as well. Now I think the D-pad might be a little bit different shape, but I'll see what I can do with that. So we'll cut over to this getting torn down. Okay, we'll just start opening this and then I'll fast forward to when we crack it open. Oh, one thing I will notice is these screws are going straight into plastic. Just grub screws. So they're leaving plastic behind. So every time you open this up, it's going to get a little bit weaker and a little bit jankier. So here we go, last screw out. Let's get cracked in this thing and get it open. So it should open quite easily. I don't think it's got many clips. Yep, that's exactly the case. This is popping open pretty easily, as you can see here. I'll just carefully pop the back off because I know the speaker is mounted to the back cover rather than mounted to the PCB. And as we can see here, it's just, oh, it fell off. As we can see here, it's just soldered on. Now the plastic on this is actually half decent plastic. It feels quite sturdy, but as you can see, there's no membranes of any kind or anything to stop the light from shining through. As you see, one fake speaker. So the speaker itself, it's actually quite a large speaker, isn't it? Probably quite a cheap speaker as well, but it's soldered directly to the board, which isn't ideal. So first thing I'll do is I'll just pop my SD card out just for safety. And there's screws here, one there. In fact, you can see there's 3 screws in total on the board. One at the top. Oh, now I'm fiddling about there because I haven't actually noticed the screws yet. I'm actually recording audio separately over this footage because my lavalier mic decided to go flat on me, so that's always good. So we'll take these 3 screws out. Watch me make a mistake here. I'll take the second screw out and then not notice that third one down the bottom. Now, it's actually quite a nice little PCB. It's designed perfectly to fit in the case. I don't know, it's got 3 screws. It could probably get by with 2. Now, you will notice up the opposite side of the top of the board, it looks like you could fit a fourth screw in, sorry. And we'll come back to that later on when I make a mistake and try and put a screw in there. Anyway, here we go, take this third screw out. One thing I will draw your attention to is the power switch on the bottom. Now, the switch itself is tiny, with a little plastic clip. You'll see it fall off just now. Now, that can be quite easy to lose. Now, it's difficult getting it out just now, and that's because of the analog stick on the other side. It's quite a tight fit, so you have to just push it from the other side. But you'll notice the power button switch cover just fell off there. Now, I didn't lose it, thankfully, but when I was reassembling it at a later point, it did fall off and go skittering away. So, here we have it. We'll put the logic board and that to one side, and we've got the front cover now. the controller I'm going to take apart is just a cloned controller, it's a cheapo thing. But we're going to take the buttons out of that and we're going to transport them over. So we'll cut over to that now. So here we have it. It's just a cheap clone controller, as you can see, really cheaply made inside, but it has got similar size buttons. So, yep, we'll just take that apart. Now, I was thinking we could remove things like the shoulder buttons, but as you can see there, they're very much different. I was hoping I could butcher quite a lot from the rip-off copied controller, but really, much as the SF2000 looks like an original SNES controller, but with a screen, it's quite a bit different. The buttons are different, the button sizes are different. And as you'll see from the membranes I'm going to show you in a moment, even the membranes are a little bit different. So that membrane there, for the ABXY, I'm going to use that. It's a little bit softer, the plastic, the rubber that's made out of. And I also think that it's a little bit taller for each of the posts. So we'll use the one from my cheap controller and we'll put the genuine one to one side. Now I'm just commenting on how soft that rubber feels, so we'll see if it feels better. And as we pull that other one apart. So we're just going to move the ABXY buttons. So the ABXY buttons on the rip-off controller are just a little bit taller. So the membrane here doesn't look like it's going to work, and as it happens, it didn't work. It worked really well for left and down, but wouldn't scroll to the right or up. So I'll just cut that out of this video footage. I was going to show me changing that and then it not working and taking it apart again, but we're not going to do that now. So I'll pop each of these buttons out and just transport them over. It's pretty easy. What I will say is, the buttons on the rip-off controller are actually, they fit in perfectly, but they're a little bit smaller. So there will be a little more light leakage from the buttons. And they're a little bit looser in the shell, although strangely they don't rattle, so the membrane from behind is obviously holding them in quite well. But I quite like these different buttons because it feels more like a European SNES controller rather than I think it's the US one that has the purple and lilac buttons, isn't it? So yeah, I like the multicolour personally. So we'll just transport them over and stick the membrane in. And that's about all I can do right now. So the footage did continue and I changed the D-pad, or tried to change the D-pad, but it was a bigger size. Okay, here we are back. It's all reassembled now. I've put the original D-pad membrane back in. I have also taken the SD card out and I've moved the files as set up by DTEYN, who created a silent ROM, or a silent sounds pack for the Datafrog SF2000, so I've copied that across. It just overwrites other files in your resources folder. Now, if like me, you've done the sensible thing, you've backed up your SD card, or you've just taken an original SD card out and cloned it to a new card, which is what I've done, so it's no big loss, don't have to back anything up. Let's turn it on now. We can crank the volume up, I suppose, this time. So hopefully it should boot up okay. Now, one thing you might have noticed is these buttons are... Oh, well, that's not worked at all. That's worked. The up, down since, but the music's still playing. I wonder why that is. So maybe the silent pack doesn't include the silly music. I'll be getting rid of that. But what I was saying is, the thing you might have noticed is these buttons are definitely smaller than the original holes, and I can confirm that in my cheapy controller because they don't actually really fit. Yeah, so they didn't really fit. So as you can notice, there's still rattles when you shake it, but it doesn't rattle from those buttons. And as you can see, those buttons now stand up a little bit more proud. Probably only about a millimetre further up in the case, but the feel is quite a bit better, I have to say. So add that onto the cost of your SF2000 that you paid $8 for, that you didn't pay $8 for, because it really cost you $25, but you're telling people it cost $8. You have to add maybe $5 for some buttons, another $5 for an 18650, but yeah, it seems to be working. So let's fire up Tetris again. This is Game Boy Tetris. Now, as you can see, I like to highlight this point. While it looks okay, it's very soft. There's no integer scaling. It's just a bit blurry. It'd be great if we eventually get some custom firmware if it's got proper integer scaling so that you can get the proper pixel perfect look. It just looks a little bit too soft. It looks a bit too much like it's emulated. Now, if you gave this to a kid, they probably wouldn't notice, to be fair. In fact, if you had it pixel perfect, they might even complain, I don't know. That said, my kid has been playing, one of my kids has been playing on the Mii Mini, and was very impressed with how sharp the screen was. And then I let them have a go on the SF2000, and we're like, that's not quite as good. So they noticed straight away. Now, I didn't tell them anything about the device, I just said, here, try and work that out. And they were, initially they struggled a bit to get it working, and they found the favourites area, because I'd saved a number of favourites, and they were able to play a little bit of Pokemon Go, I think it was, Fire Red, I think it was they tried. And they said it was okay, but it didn't look quite the same. But they couldn't explain how. Now, I didn't let them do a side-by-side, but they just felt there was something different. And I think, as I'm showing here, everything's a little bit soft. You get that very strange diagonal refresh every now and then, which we just saw a few seconds ago. If you'd scrolled back, you can see that. If you keep watching, you'll see every now and then it's top right to bottom left. It's really weird screen refresh. I've never seen a screen refresh quite like it. Now, don't get me wrong, you're playing like Game Boy Advance games, they look okay. If I could just get my camera to focus properly on just the screen, you would see, but everything's just a little bit soft. Because there's no integer scaling, and you can't get that pixel perfect look. And you saw that strange refresh happening there again, so I think you'll see it again. There you go. See that in the Pokemon screen just before it started? You got a strange diagonal refresh. Now, that really, really annoys me, because I'm sure it could be avoided. Anyway, let's quickly fire this game up. It takes a little while to load, actually. So, one thing I also don't like about the SF2000, it's not really a fault of the SF2000, it's just that I'm spoiled because I've used better products. But on better products, with better emulators on them, you normally have a fast forward option. And that works great on these older Nintendo games where you spend a lot of time just scrolling through, messages on screen, and you're reading and you're button mashing and you're not getting anywhere. You can turn fast forward, you'll push a button usually, it's like R2, I think you hold that down on the Mii Mini, and you can fast forward and everything's like 50 to 100% faster on screen. So messages appear instantly, you can skip past them, you can get into the gameplay. You can't do it with SF2000, which is a bit annoying. So yeah, as I'm showing you here, that font just looks a bit soft. It looks a little bit out of focus. So much as you can read it okay, it's a decent resolution screen. Don't get me wrong. The issue is the emulator is not great because you can't change it to integer scaling. If you could, and you could scale it to fit that screen okay, then you'd probably find all the text would be just so much sharper. There you go, some more of that strange diagonal scrolling going on. Now, I get a bit fed up with this game, so I'm going to just skip forward a bit and we'll try something else. I don't know how much this has been recorded. My lavalier microphone is powered off. I haven't charged it for a while, and that's on me. So, yes, we'll just carry on as we have. I'll go over all the stuff I've already gone over in the last 5 minutes. I've just noticed the light was flashed on it, and that would suggest it's powered off. I don't use a very expensive one, and it turned off. So, we can plug that in later on. Do I think there's a use case for this? I'm going to say there might be use cases for this. It does work. It's not very good, but it does work. So if you work in an industry where you get a bit of downtime now and then, but you maybe got mucky hands, things get damaged, easily dropped, okay. That might be okay for you if you want to play some basic Pokemon type stuff, or Tetris. If you don't mind it being a little bit soft, there's no integer scale there. Would be great if custom firmware was able to address that. But as it stands, in the end of October 2023, this thing was getting reviewed way back in April, and people were talking back then, March, April, about how custom firmware would fix all the issues. There's no sign of that yet. Not for mere mortals to play with. So I have installed version 1.6. Now I'll share that in the link above. I don't know. You could give it to a small kid, but if they get the bug, they're not going to play this for very long. They're going to want something better. They really are. And the minute they see something better, they're going to be like, this is not very good. The font, like I say, the fonts are really soft. There's no, it doesn't feel like it should, you know, because there's no integer scale and everything's a little bit soft. So, like I say, these games, it takes too long for these Pokemon games, but that diagonal refreshing, I don't know why more people are not picking up on that. It really is horrendous. And as I've said, you know, people fire up Metal Slug, for example. Try King of Fighters 97. That's going to need a little bit more oomph, I would think. See how we get on with that. Quite slow loading up games as well. Shows how weak the chip is in this. And like everybody says, oh, it's great if you can get it for $8. Okay, I'll accept it. It's a good deal if you can get it for $8. But when I've looked, I hear people saying, oh, I just picked one up for $8. I've been looking quite a lot, checking my own facts. And every time I look on AliExpress or Temu, the prices for this thing are $20, $25. And if you want to get the new ones, and the new colours, like the lurid yellow, those are like $35 easily. So I'm going to say I don't appreciate people that lie. Now, I'm not saying people are lying. I just think some people are like, yeah, I paid more because I picked the yellow one, so I paid $35, but I still think it's a good deal for $8. Yeah, that's fine if you paid $8, but if you paid $35, it's really not a great deal. Now, just fire up some characters and get into this. King of Fighters 97. I gotta say though, I mean, I can't fault the screen. The screen is the highlight of this whole device. It's just unfortunate the software lets everything else down. And the buttons aren't great. I can't actually tell if this is running at full speed. Might be. Getting absolutely destroyed here as well. I think. Huh, absolutely wrecked. Look at that! Look at that though! You can't say you didn't see that. That refresh is horrendous. Anyway. What else can I try? Well, I like to show the Super Nintendo. That audio did a weird loop again. What? Why am I saying Game Boy? Game Boy. Oh, that's okay. It's Game Boy. The fonts are so similar. That was a fault on me. Right. Let's. Oh, what have I loaded now? That's the other thing I don't like. It's so easy to forget that you've got to push a button to get in. Now, most people that are showing videos are just showing a game from early on. When you go through the menus, it takes quite a while. I will say though, that little silent pack, okay, I'll get rid of the music at some point, but not hearing the wet sploosh when you change through carts, what a bloody difference that makes. That was just horrible. Constant push, push, push. Oh man, worst noise ever. So, what am I looking for? Super Mario, I think, eh? Some Yoshi's Island. Sure hope I've got audio. There we go. Super Mario World 2. Here we go. That's what we want. Now, okay, this is worst case scenario. But people are saying this is such a good device, it can even play Super Nintendo. Yes, it can. Just not particularly well. Now, straight away, you'll notice my footage isn't too bad. I don't have to restart. That's for the 1.6 firmware, which is a marked improvement over the 1.4 and 1.5. So, yeah, I'll give them that much. But you still get that horrible diagonal thing. And you can hear the audio stutter. That's not running at full speed. We haven't even started anything yet. There'll be people saying, yeah, but the special chip involved in this game, it's harder to emulate. We're only at the start. We're not even like loaded into a game yet. So, let's not kid. This doesn't emulate Super Nintendo very well. There's some audio clip in there. But, V1.6 of the firmware, definitely better. But there you go, you get this. Now, I'm not going to hold this against it, but this highlights this really weird diagonal refresh that goes on. Now, if you're susceptible to strobe lighting of any kind, you're not going to be able to play on this thing, because you don't know when it's going to do that. Now, I don't know if this is the PAL or the NTSC version of the ROM either. That's another issue. I suppose I could do some digging and try and find out, but I don't think this is running at full speed. I don't think it's running at 60 FPS. It runs okay-ish. But why would you accept okay-ish when you can have good? That's what gets me. And again, just get this damn thing to focus properly. It's very soft. Yeah. It's not what it should be. Now you can see that there. That was it's stuttery. You see that? There's definitely not full frames. I think that's maybe, at best, 30, 40 FPS. It's not running at 60. It's not smooth. It might look smooth on the footage, but trust me, it's really not smooth. And then you get random glitching like that. Now, I'm not saying people are intentionally not showing this in videos. I'm also not saying it might be my device. It's the issue here. Got a feeling it's not though. You see that? I think if you're at all susceptible to this dodgy refreshing, then you really won't get a good experience using this device. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm done with this thing. It's twice I've reviewed it now. You can't change my mind. This isn't a great device. I've made some amendments. I've changed the buttons. I've changed the battery. And I've put a latest firmware on it. And it's still not that strong a device. What would I recommend you buy? Recommend you buy one of these. Now, this you can buy from AliExpress. New price in inverted commas. And you might get it for $8, but you're more likely to see it for about $20, $25. And if you want to get one of the new colorways that it comes in, you're looking at $30, $35. You have to change the battery, unless you want to set fire to your house. You know, there's always that risk when you're using an unprotected cell. You probably want to change some of the buttons. You maybe want to change the membrane rubbers. It'll be a bit better, but it still won't be great. You'll need to change the SD card, although I would recommend you change the SD card on the Miyoo Mini as well. I mean, price-wise, I bought it and an SD card. It cost me £37. The SD card was £3-ish, so about 40 quid for me here. $40, $45, all in with the mods on this, about 35. It's for the base model one as well, not the newer colourways. So if you picked one that was a nicer colourway than this, like the yellow or the red, you're looking at the same price as a Miyoo Mini Plus, if you shop wisely. Now, this is new from Temu, and this was new from eBay through a legitimate seller. But what I will say is, there's no comparison. If you can afford that now, and that's all you'll ever be able to afford, you'll never be able to save any more money, then fine, get that. If you think you'll be able to save a little bit more money, wait and get one of these. I can't make it clearer. Honestly, it is a much better device. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.